Power is an unforgiving game, and trust is its rarest currency. In the relentless struggle to rise and endure, one brutal truth stands clear. If you hesitate to betray, someone else will betray you first. This isn't a lesson in cruelty, but a harsh reality shaped by human nature and history. In every sphere of influence, whether politics, business, or personal relationships, those who act first often seize control, while those who wait become victims. Consider the theater of ancient Rome, where the ambitions of men were as vast as their empires. Julius Caesar, a man of immense power and popularity, was surrounded by senators who feared his ascent. They whispered behind closed doors, plotting not just to curb his influence, but to end it entirely. Their actions culminated in a sudden, brutal betrayal, the Ides of March. Caesar's downfall was not merely the result of personal vendettas, but a strategic preemption. The senators acted before Caesar could consolidate even more power, fearing their own obsolescence. This preemptive betrayal was the ruthless calculus of survival. Those who hesitated to act were swallowed whole by the tides of ambition surrounding them. The lesson here is stark. In power struggles, waiting can be fatal. To strike first is to hold the advantage, to control the narrative, and to shape the aftermath. History offers countless such examples, where the bold betrayal was the difference between dominance and destruction. Caesar Borgia, the ruthless son of Pope Alexander VI, carved his path to power through calculated treachery. His rise was marked by swift eliminations of rivals, showing no hesitation in wielding betrayal as a tool. For Borgia, betrayal wasn't an act of impulse, but a weapon honed for survival and conquest. His story illuminates a principle Machiavelli would later emphasize. A ruler must not shy away from wrongdoing when necessity demands it. The delicate political landscape of Queen Elizabeth I's court further exemplifies this truth. Surrounded by spies, conspiracies, and shifting loyalties, Elizabeth's reign thrived because she understood the importance of preemption. She often acted quietly to neutralize threats before they could materialize, playing her enemies against each other like a grandmaster in a deadly game of chess. The survival of her reign depended on subtle betrayals masked as political maneuvering. At the heart of these examples is the understanding that betrayal is not merely an act of malice, but a strategic move in the pursuit of power. It's the recognition that trust is a fragile commodity, and in a world driven by ambition, waiting for betrayal to come to you is often a death sentence. This harsh reality is deeply rooted in human nature. Psychologically, betrayal is linked to self-preservation and competition. Trust is rarely blind. It is always a calculated risk. Humans evolved in social groups where alliances could mean life or death, but so could betrayal. Our minds are wired to detect threats and, when necessary, strike first to secure safety. Evolution favored those who anticipated betrayal and acted before becoming victims. In social dynamics, hesitation breeds vulnerability. When you show weakness or indecision, you invite others to fill the void. Paranoia, often dismissed as irrational, can actually be a survival mechanism, a heightened awareness that protects against unseen dangers. The cognitive bias to suspect and preempt threats is not paranoia, but prudence shaped by thousands of years of human conflict. The cost of hesitation is high. Waiting to see if someone will betray you gives them the chance to plan, gather strength, and strike with devastating effect. In contrast, a preemptive strike disrupts their plans, destabilizes their confidence, and seizes control of the situation. It forces opponents onto the defensive, shifting power to the initiator. This principle extends beyond politics and history into personal relationships. Friendships and romantic ties are often fragile, built on trust that can be exploited. Betrayal in these spheres is painful, but the logic remains. Waiting to be betrayed leaves you vulnerable to emotional harm and manipulation. Sometimes cutting ties early, before a betrayal occurs, is an act of self-preservation. Recognizing toxic behavior and acting decisively to remove those who would harm you is a form of preemptive betrayal that protects your well-being. These personal betrayals teach us that loyalty is conditional and often temporary. People's true intentions can be masked by affection or obligation until it is too late. By striking first, Whether by ending a relationship or confronting hidden agendas, you regain control over your own narrative and emotional health. In the workplace, this lesson is equally relevant. Business partnerships, employee relations, and corporate rivalries often involve a subtle dance of trust and suspicion. Betrayals in the corporate world can take the form of hostile takeovers, backdoor deals, or the undermining of colleagues. Those who fail to anticipate these moves risk being outmaneuvered, losing not only their position, but their reputation and influence. Corporate history is filled with stories of executives and partners who were blindsided by betrayal because they trusted too much or acted too slowly. On the other hand, those who strike first, by exposing weaknesses, securing alliances, or removing threats, often gain dominance. In the ruthless environment of business, preemption is a strategy that can mean the difference between success and ruin. Yet, wielding betrayal as a tool demands finesse. Excessive or reckless betrayal can destroy alliances and isolate you from potential allies. The art lies in balancing ruthless action with maintaining relationships where possible. Betray first, but do so strategically, with an eye on long-term gains rather than short-term impulses. In modern politics, the principle remains unchanged. Social media amplifies the speed at which betrayal can occur, and the stakes are just as high. Political actors must constantly anticipate moves from opponents, leaking damaging information or shifting public opinion. Preemptive strikes in the form of disclosures, accusations, or strategic resignations are common tools to neutralize threats before they escalate. Ethically, the lesson is complex. Betrayal is often condemned, but when framed as survival strategy, it occupies a gray zone. Is it cruel or pragmatic? Is it the price of maintaining order or the root of chaos? The answer depends on perspective. Machiavelli argued that morality must bend to the necessities of power, but the consequences of betrayal often ripple beyond immediate gains, affecting reputations and social cohesion. Understanding when and how to betray, whether in personal, professional, or political spheres, is a critical skill. Acting too soon may cause unnecessary damage, while waiting too long invites ruin. The wise navigate this balance, knowing that betrayal, when wielded as a strategic tool, can secure survival and dominance. The lesson to betray first or be betrayed is not about embracing cruelty, but about recognizing the nature of power and human interaction. It calls for vigilance, courage, and cold calculation. In a world where ambition drives behavior and trust is scarce, striking first is often the only way to hold the upper hand. As this principle unfolds through history, psychology, and everyday life, it reveals a fundamental truth. Power favors the decisive, the bold, and the prepared. Those who understand this rule hold the key to survival in any arena. The rest become casualties of their own hesitation. The concept of betrayal as a preemptive strategy extends far beyond history and psychology. It lives in the very fabric of social dynamics and human relationships. To fully grasp its power, one must look deeper into the ways trust functions as a fragile pact, constantly tested by ambition, fear, and self-interest. Trust is never absolute. It is a balance of risk and reward, a gamble made when we hope others will honor the bond. But hope in the arena of power is a weakness. When two people enter a relationship, be it personal or professional, they implicitly agree to trust each other. Yet beneath this fragile agreement, every participant is silently aware that betrayal remains a possibility. The tension between cooperation and competition creates a landscape where one's survival often depends on anticipating betrayal and, when necessary, acting first to prevent being the victim. In personal relationships, the stakes feel different, but the logic remains the same. Loyalty can be shattered by jealousy, fear, or shifting alliances. Friends who once seemed trustworthy can turn into rivals. Lovers can become enemies. The emotional pain of betrayal is often greater because it cuts deeper than political or corporate betrayals. Trust is intertwined with vulnerability and identity. Yet even in this realm, the principle of striking first before being struck applies. To wait until betrayal manifests can lead to emotional devastation. Preemptive moves, Whether ending a relationship, setting firm boundaries, or exposing dishonesty, allow one to regain control. It's a form of self-defense, a way to protect one's sense of self before harm becomes irreversible. Consider the example of someone in a toxic friendship, where the other party subtly undermines confidence, spreads rumors, or manipulates emotions. Waiting passively can result in a slow erosion of trust and well-being. Acting decisively, cutting the connection, or confronting the betrayal before it fully unfolds, shifts power back to the vulnerable party. It is a betrayal in its own right, but one wielded as a shield rather than a weapon. In families, the dynamics can be even more complex. Loyalties are expected, but often complicated by hidden resentments, jealousy, and competition for approval or inheritance. Betrayals here are tangled with love and history, making the consequences heavier. Yet the Machiavellian lesson applies. Those who anticipate and act before betrayal occurs often preserve their place, status, and emotional safety. Those who hesitate may be blindsided by long-buried grievances or sudden power plays. Beyond personal relationships, the workplace is a modern battleground where betrayal happens in subtler, but no less damaging forms. Business alliances can crumble when one partner senses the other's ambition shifting. Employees may undermine each other to climb the ladder, leaking secrets or sabotaging projects. Executives face backstabbing from rivals seeking promotions or control. The modern corporate environment rewards those who recognize the signs of impending betrayal and move swiftly. Waiting too long means losing deals, influence, or even jobs. The art of preemptive betrayal here involves gathering intelligence, cultivating loyal allies, and striking with precision when a threat appears. Hostile takeovers, whistleblowing, or sudden resignations are all forms of strategic betrayal designed to seize advantage. One infamous example is the rise and fall of business empires, where trusted partners suddenly turn on each other. Consider the stories of companies betrayed from within, founders ousted by their own board members, partners selling secrets to competitors, or executives leaking damaging information to the press. These betrayals were often preceded by warning signs that went unheeded until it was too late. The workplace teaches that betrayal is rarely impulsive. It is often calculated, waiting for the right moment to maximize impact. This makes vigilance essential. The wise cultivate awareness of shifting loyalties, assess motives behind seemingly innocent actions, and when necessary, act decisively to neutralize threats before they can strike. In politics, the stakes of betrayal are magnified. Leaders are surrounded by rivals, allies, and enemies, all jockeying for power and influence. Betrayals can change the course of history. An unexpected vote, a leaked scandal, or a sudden alliance can topple governments or crown kings. Political actors learn early that waiting too long to act risks being removed by those hungrier and quicker. The digital age has accelerated this dynamic. News spreads instantly, and secrets can be weaponized overnight. Politicians and public figures live under constant threat of exposure. Preemptive strikes, resignations before scandals explode, leaks to control the narrative, or public accusations to silence critics are common tactics to maintain control. But wielding betrayal requires skill. It is not enough to strike first. One must strike effectively. Reckless betrayal can backfire, alienating allies or provoking greater resistance. The master strategist weighs timing, motive, and consequence. Machiavelli himself warned against unnecessary cruelty or betrayal that sows lasting hatred. Instead, he advocated for cold calculation, betrayal when necessary, mercy when it serves longer-term goals. Ethically, betrayal occupies a difficult space. Society condemns it, valuing trust and loyalty as foundational virtues. Yet the realities of power complicate these ideals. Is betrayal always evil, or sometimes necessary? The answer is rarely simple. Context, motive, and consequence shape whether betrayal is viewed as pragmatic or malicious. Some betrayals protect greater goods, exposing corruption, ending dangerous alliances, or preventing harm. Others are purely selfish, fueled by greed or spite. The wise learn to discern these nuances, wielding betrayal strategically and with awareness of moral cost. Betrayal also carries heavy personal consequences. Even when successful, it can haunt the betrayer. Relationships are fractured, trust is harder to build, and reputation can suffer. The cost of power is often loneliness. Those who betray first must accept the burdens of their choices, navigating a world where suspicion shadows every interaction. The principle transcends spheres and cultures because it taps into the core of human nature. People desire security, power, and status. They also fear loss, humiliation, and death, literal or symbolic. This creates a constant tension where alliances are formed and broken, trust given and withdrawn, and betrayals plotted. Understanding this landscape empowers one to navigate it. Instead of naively trusting or reacting only when attacked, one anticipates threats and moves first. This requires keen observation, emotional detachment, and strategic patience. It also requires embracing discomfort. Betrayal is messy and painful, even when wielded for survival. It demands accepting that others may suffer and that alliances are fragile. The successful practitioner of this lesson walks a narrow path between ruthless action and measured restraint. Ultimately, betray first or be betrayed is a mantra for survival in a competitive world. It reveals the tension between trust and power, loyalty and self-interest. It demands constant vigilance and readiness to act decisively. Those who understand and accept this rule can protect themselves, seize opportunities, and shape outcomes. Those who ignore it risk being blindsided by the ambitions of others. Power is a relentless game with no guarantees, but one truth stands firm: those who strike first control the game, while those who wait become its casualties. To master the harsh lesson of betrayal is to master the art of survival itself. Yet beyond survival, it is a principle that enables one to thrive in the chaotic arenas of power and influence. The ability to act decisively before a threat materializes not only preserves life and status, but can elevate one to heights inaccessible to the hesitant. But what does it take to betray first effectively? It demands more than courage. It requires clarity of vision, ruthless calculation, and emotional control. Betrayal without reason or planning is reckless. Betrayal as a reflex reaction exposes weakness and invites retaliation. The wise understand that timing, target, and aftermath must all be weighed with precision. A successful preemptive betrayal strikes at the core of the threat before it becomes unmanageable. It disrupts alliances, fractures conspiracies, and sows doubt among adversaries. It forces others to respond on your terms, scrambling to recover. This disruption is power in motion, a moment where the balance shifts irrevocably. Consider the dynamics of a conspiracy within a court or a corporate boardroom. The conspirators plot quietly, gathering strength and confidence in secrecy. Waiting for betrayal means being blind to the growing storm. To betray first is to unveil the plot prematurely, exposing weaknesses and forcing the conspirators to retreat or fracture. The element of surprise is a weapon in itself. Yet even as one betrays first, prudence calls for subtlety. Overt betrayal risks backlash, rallying enemies against the betrayer. The skill lies in masking the act within a cloak of plausible deniability. Strategic rumors or indirect actions. Sometimes it means isolating a target socially before striking, undermining their credibility to minimize resistance. Machiavelli highlighted this nuance in his writings. A prince who must act cruelly should do so swiftly and all at once, rather than dragging out suffering that breeds hatred. In betrayal, the same principle applies. Strike decisively, then consolidate. Delay breeds resentment and revenge. The aftermath of betrayal is a delicate period. Once the first strike lands, maintaining control is paramount. Allies must be reassured or won over. Enemies must be monitored and neutralized if they seek retaliation. The betrayer must remain vigilant, for betrayal changes the landscape permanently. Trust is broken, and rebuilding it, if necessary, requires effort and often compensation. Some betrayals end relationships irrevocably. Others can be framed as necessary sacrifices for a greater good or survival. How one manages the fallout often determines long-term success. In leadership, betrayal is sometimes a tool to cleanse the ranks, remove corruption, or enforce discipline. A leader who hesitates to betray subordinates who undermine authority risks losing control. Conversely, A leader who betrays recklessly risks alienating followers and breeding instability. The wise leader balances firmness with fairness, betrayal with mercy. They use betrayal strategically to strengthen their position and unify their base, not out of personal spite or impulsive anger. At the individual level, embracing the lesson of betraying first requires self-awareness and courage. It demands recognizing when trust has become a liability and having the resolve to act despite emotional cost. Many fail this test because they confuse loyalty with weakness or fear the consequences of betrayal. But to succeed, one must shed illusions. Loyalty is a privilege, not a right. Trust is earned, but can be revoked at any time. Self-preservation and advancement often require painful choices. Psychologically, this path is challenging. Betrayal often conflicts with moral conditioning, empathy, and desire for connection. Overcoming these internal barriers involves embracing a pragmatic worldview that prioritizes outcomes over idealism. It also involves mastering emotional detachment, seeing relationships not solely as bonds of affection, but as strategic alliances. This does not mean abandoning humanity, but acknowledging the reality of competition and conflict in human affairs. In practical terms, learning to betray first involves developing keen perception. One must detect subtle signs of disloyalty, hidden agendas, or shifting alliances. This requires attention to language, behavior, and context, reading between the lines of conversation and action. Building a network of trusted informants, allies, and advisors is essential. Intelligence gathering enables preemptive action based on accurate information rather than paranoia. Once a threat is identified, the betrayer plans the strike with precision. This includes selecting the right moment, method, and message to maximize impact and minimize collateral damage. Methods of betrayal can vary widely, from exposing secrets to sabotage, from social exclusion to direct confrontation. The choice depends on the context, objectives, and personalities involved. In some cases, a quiet removal of a rival through reassignment, subtle undermining, or isolation is more effective than overt confrontation. In others, a bold public exposure or denunciation may be necessary to break a powerful threat. The goal is always to disrupt the opponent's plans before they can be realized, seizing control of the situation and forcing others into reaction. Yet, even the best executed betrayal carries risks. The betrayed party may seek revenge, rally supporters, or undermine the betrayer's position. The aftermath requires readiness to defend gains and manage instability. This ongoing vigilance is part of the cost of wielding betrayal. Power is not static. It requires constant maintenance and adaptation. Looking across history, some of the greatest figures exemplified this lesson. Napoleon Bonaparte, known for his military genius, also mastered political betrayal, striking swiftly against rivals within his own ranks to consolidate power. His success was as much political as it was martial. On the other hand, leaders who failed to betray first often met tragic ends. The fate of King Louis XVI, who hesitated and was betrayed by his court and subjects, underscores the deadly cost of inaction. In the modern era, business moguls and political leaders who anticipate threats and act decisively continue to thrive, while the slow or naive fall victim to rivals and scandal. Ultimately, betray first or be betrayed is not a call to cruelty, but a recognition of the realities of power and human nature. It is a principle born of necessity, shaped by history, and proven in the crucible of competition. To live by this lesson is to accept that trust is provisional, loyalty conditional, and survival dependent on readiness. It demands courage to act before the threat arrives, clarity to plan the strike, and wisdom to manage the aftermath. Those who master this rule hold the reins of power. Those who ignore it become victims, swept aside by the ambitions of others. Power is a ruthless arena, and betrayal is one of its most potent weapons. To wield it first is to command the game. To hesitate is to lose everything.